Hi, I'm Pastor Dave with Interpreting the Times, and welcome to this week's video. Well, all the news this week, or the majority of the news this week, has to do with President Trump's travel ban. Now, what do you think about his travel ban? You know, when something like that is done, I have questions. I wonder, why would someone put something like that in place? What's the thinking behind that? And I've watched all the protests. I've seen all the people complain. But there had to be some information that we don't have or we don't understand. There had to be some reasoning behind this. So trying to dig into that and find out what's going on behind the scenes is kind of interesting. You know, there is a man named Phillip Haney. Now, Phillip Haney has just recently retired from the Department of Homeland Security. In fact, he was a founding member of the DHS. Of course, Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11. So Phillip Haney was also a founding member of the Passenger Analysis Unit, the PAU. Now, how many people have heard of the PAU? Basically, this is under the Customs and Border Protection Division. Customs and Border control this, and the PAU, basically what they do, it's a standalone agency. It was created in 2003, and according to Haney, the PAU is charged with vetting, investigating, finding addresses, making connections, and putting all the dots together on anybody who wants to enter the United States. So basically, that is what Donald Trump's travel ban was all about. He wants to do a better job vetting people. That word caught my attention. So here is somebody who did it for 15 years. Here is somebody who received awards and commendations for the work that he did. And now he's kind of speaking out. He has been since last summer. In fact, he's written a book. His book is called See Something, Say Nothing. You know, the catchphrase is see something, say something. But he's saying we're forced to say nothing. So let me give you some background information on Phillip Haney and the information he has publicly come out with. And then we can look at the travel ban and see how realistic it is. Again, now Haney worked, the level of work and what he was doing, it brought him to the National Targeting Center. Now, how many people have heard about the National Targeting Center? You know, all the people protesting, all the people upset, and everybody speaking out. How many of those people understand things like the PAU? How many people understand the National Targeting Center? See, this is where all the information is gathered. This is where everything comes together. And the National Targeting Center is where all the agencies that have anything to do with law enforcement, they compile all the data and all kind of goes there. So it's a one-stop place. So FBI, local police, federal, whatever, Border Patrol, they can contact the National Targeting Center and get information on visas, family connections, backgrounds, on anybody they want to. So this is where Haney was, and he was in the middle of all this. Now he shares an example of what happened. Now, you may not remember when, but if I would say, remember the underwear bomber? Most people would say, oh yeah, that was at Christmas Day. There's the guy flying from, it was the Netherlands to Detroit. Excuse me. And it was a 23-year-old Nigerian Muslim. It happened on Christmas Day in 2009. And what he wanted to do, he wanted to blow up Northwestern flight, I think it was 253, and there was over 260 people, I believe, aboard that flight that Christmas Day. Well, obviously, he set the explosives off in his underwear and so on and so forth. It didn't go off, and then passengers subdued him, and he was arrested, and everybody in the world knew about it. So, you know, thank God that was a failed terrorist attack at blowing up a plane. Well, when that happened, or right after that happened, President Obama went public. And he kind of threw the intelligence community under the bus. And again, I want to read from Haney's information. He said, Obama threw the intelligence community under the bus for its failure to connect the dots. And Haney says, Obama went public, and this is what he said. He says, this was not a failure to collect intelligence. It was a failure to integrate and understand the intelligence that we already had. Now, this is an example of where Haney says, kind of gets us to the point of Trump and his ban now, because Haney says, you know, what happened was Obama said it was a failure to connect the dots. And this is December of 2009. He said, and that statement, when the president went public with that statement, the average American had no understanding the moral decline and what happened to the Department of Homeland Security, because they had the dots. They had the information. And in November of 2009, they were told to delete or modify a lot of records of people because they had a Muslim background. It was President Obama's administration itself that wanted to go in there and modify or delete hundreds of records of people because they were from the Islamic countries or they were Muslims. And because that information was wiped out. So Haney says his supervisors came to him in November of 2009. They had to wipe out records. Part of the records could have saved what happened in Christmas Day of 2009. The information was there. And what this is called the Treasury Enforcement Communication System. The Treasury Enforcement Communication System. It's known as TECS. That's the system where all the records are kept, and that was modified. Haney says they had discovered, again, I'm reading from him, a number of terrorists who were entering the United States, now get this, on the visa waiver program. And what it is, you're allowed to come into the country without a visa. And he says, basically, a lot of these people are from the Commonwealth, the British Empire, which includes Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and other places in the world. He says that's why you see so many immigrants from that part of the world living in the UK, because they have Commonwealth rights there in the UK. And he says, here's the key to the whole thing. He says a lot of them have two passports. So they would use their EU, the European Union, or their UK passport to qualify for the visa waiver. And then once they traveled back east to the home region, they didn't use the EU passport, they used their own country's passport. So basically what they were doing, they were traveling under two different identities with two different passports. One to get them into America with a visa waiver, and one to get them back home with their own passports. And Haney goes on to say, we were tracking them, we were on top of that. Haney goes on to say in his book, he says, the Muslim Brotherhood, it has a huge structure in America, has a huge network in America. It's highly organized, it has leadership, it has places, it has actual offices. And he says, and then you got your web, your communication, your cyber stuff, and you put it all together, and he says, and you see patterns. And you begin to see people coming and going in a certain way, and he said you can identify things, and you can identify targets and possible links to terror group. Haney himself began to investigate a Muslim fundamental group whose name, if you translate it into English, it means the Party of the Promoters. And Haney believes that this group is between 50 and 80 million people in it. And he says him and his fellow investigators, they found links to Hamas, they found links to Al-Qaeda, they found links to how they were being funded, global terrorism, global funding, all these things. And he says basically it revolves around a global network of schools. He says that it's where people learn and study the Quran, they study Islamic law, they memorize the Quran, they study the teachings of Muhammad. It's like colleges. He says they're all over the world, and he says the world global headquarters is the United Kingdom, and they have a very strong network in South Africa. And he says we were tracking all this and monitoring all these people. He says they start kids off very young. He says they take them out of school and they put them in the system and they teach them the Quran, and that's all they actually learn. And then when they become 16, 17, 18 years old, about the time one is to graduate from high school, then they take them over and they put them in a program in South America, and when they graduate that, then they put them back to wherever their home country was or the home place was, and they become leaders of other ones. They begin mentoring and training other people and the things that they had learned. And he says a key there was one of those major headquarters was in San Bernardino, California. And by the time the terror attack took place in San Bernardino, Haney was already out of the Department of Homeland Security. He retired with honors. But he says, when I heard San Bernardino, the dots would have been connected. And he says, we had the information. We were told to take it out. Now, let's go back to the travel ban and conclude this video. I asked you, what did you think about the travel ban? All the protests, everybody upset. What I believe President Trump is saying is time out. Now, he has the inside information. He has the intelligent reports. If he saw this information that I just shared with you that Haney talks about very publicly, he would say, well, we need to regather all this data and put it all back into the system. How long would that take? He's saying we're going to put a hold on the visas. Well, the visa waiver program is broken. So he's saying, well, these 7 countries, where these schools are and where these people are coming from, until we can do a better job vetting people, we're going to put a pause on having people come into the country, a travel ban. Now, with the background information, does that not make sense? If you know we were tracking them and then the information, the files were either modified or deleted, how long would it take to get that information back in? What kind of information do we need? We need family connections. We need country connections. We need, background, all the stuff that they had collected. And until we can get that, are we really a safer country? So with what President Trump is doing, now he's not coming out publicly, he's not throwing Obama under the bus, he's not saying we had it all and that prior administration took all the information out. He's not pointing fingers. He's just saying we're going to take a timeout, we're going to pause, and we're going to look at this travel ban, and we're going to do it correctly. And we're going to allow people into the country as long as they want to be Americans and want to make sure this country stays safe. Now, when you have the background information, how do you feel about President Trump's travel ban? Hey, that's the video for this week. Hope I gave you something to think about. Again, my name is Pastor Dave. The ministry is called Interpreting the Times. If you are seeing this for the first time, want to know more about that, if you Google it, it's all one word, interpretingthetimes.com. Look forward to being back with you again next week. God bless you.